Hey there, hope everyone is doing good out there. Here we'll be talking about something called the nervous system or the classification of nervous system. Nervous system, it can be broadly divided into the central nervous system or better called the CNS and the peripheral nervous system or better called the PNS. So, what is central nervous system? The central nervous system mainly consists of the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, this portion here is called the brain, and the remaining part is called the spinal cord. And what does this central nervous system do? Okay, the central functions of the central nervous system can be described in 4 points. In humans, the brain and the spinal cord is a central unit, and thus it is first responsible for receiving information from the body and the outside environment. The second one, the brain collects all this information and it processes this information and then integrates them. And the third function is, after processing and integration, the brain decides on what to do. Suppose, imagine there is a biryani in front of me. Okay, the moment I get a sight of this biryani, okay, which will be prepared in a appealing way, I start to feel hungry. When after I see the biryani, my salivary glands starts to produce saliva, right? My mouth becomes watery, okay, and I start to feel hungry. I start to hear burr sounds from my stomach, okay, and all of a sudden the whole focus at that point turns into tasting that biryani, right? This simple incident can be broken down with these 3 points. First one, receiving information from the body and the outside environment. In my environment, I had a biryani. Okay. And how did I get the information? I saw it. Means my eyes, the sensory organ responsible for vision, it got sight of the biryani, and that was the signal that my brain received. Okay, there is a biryani there. Okay. Apart from the sight of the biryani, the smell of the biryani can also trigger my central nervous system. So I have information going into my brain. One is the smell of the biryani. The second one is the sight of the biryani. Okay. Secondly, after my brain receives the signal, my brain tries to relate this current information of the sight and the smell of the biryani with the past experience I had. Means it tries to search for the past experiences where I had my first biryani, whether the experience was good or bad, and how does it usually taste, whether it is my favorite food or not, or whether it is something I like or not. It tries to link this current information to all those past experiences. And after looking into the past experiences, the brain understands, okay, my first experience with biryani was something that was good, it was awesome. It integrated all this information and then it decides on what to do. And here, it makes my body or it prepares my body for having that biryani. And in that process, my mouth starts to salivate, or it is my mouth becomes watery. Means the brain sends information to the salivary gland to produce more and more saliva. That's the reason why I salivate. Second one, it sends information to the stomach to release more and more gastric juice or the hydrochloric acid so that it can help in digestion and make me feel hungry. Okay, and that's the reason why I hear that burr sound in my stomach. Consider this too by my CNS, okay, central nervous system. There was information going in to the brain, right? There was some information that was going into the brain. The brain processes those information, integrates those information, and then it decides on what to do. And then those information are taken from the brain to different glands or body parts or the effectors, right? Effectors means those organs which carry out the brain's decisions. Okay, I think I have explained it in my earlier videos on homeostasis. So these information which goes into the brain, okay, are called the sensory information, and the system that carries the sensory information to the brain is referred to as the sensory system. Okay, and similarly, after processing and integrating those sensory information, my brain decides on what to do, and information is carried out from the brain. Those information which is carried out from the brain into different organs are called the motor information or the motor response. That part of the nervous system which carries the motor information away from the brain to different parts of the body are called the motor system. Now, basically, what does the sensory system and motor system do? They carry information to the brain and from the brain, right? So, these sensory system and motor system are together called the peripheral nervous system. Okay. So, the peripheral nervous system can be classified into the sensory peripheral nervous system and the motor peripheral nervous system. Right. Now, the sensory peripheral nervous system, based on the types of sensory information they carry, they can be divided into one is the special senses and the second one is the general sensations. General sensations. So, what does special sensations mean? Sensations that can be only felt by a particular part of our body. Example, first one is vision, right? You can only see through your eyes. You cannot see through your hands, you cannot see through your legs, you cannot see through your chest, right? You can only see through your eyes. So, that is one special sense. The second one is, guess it, it is the ability to smell, right? So smell or olfaction, that is what we call the sensation of smell. Olfaction is second special sense. Third one is the ability to hear, right? You can only hear through your ears, you cannot hear through your nose or your eyes, right? Now, what does general sensation include? General sensation means sensations that can be felt in from different parts of the body. For example, when I touch my hand, I can understand there is something touching on my hand. Okay, or the sensation touch can be perceived by my hand. When I touch on my eyes, still I can perceive the same information. When I touch on my nose, I can still perceive the same information. When I touch on my tongue, I can perceive the same information, right? So, a particular sensation which can be perceived by different parts of our body are referred to as general sensation. So, what are these general sensations basically? One is the touch. Second one is vibration. Third one is pain, right? I can perceive pain from any part of my body, right? So these are general sensations. I forgot about one of the main special sense, that is the ability to taste. Or else how could I have tasted my biryani, right? So that is another. The main special senses we have are vision, smell, hear, and taste. Okay. So as we told earlier, the general sensations involve pain, touch, sense of temperature, and vibration. Okay. And the special senses include the ability to see, that is vision, the ability to smell, that is olfaction, the ability to hear, and the ability to taste. Now, based on from where we receive these general sensations can be classified further into one is the somatic sensations and the visceral sensation, and this is based on from where we receive the sensations. Okay, so visceral sensation means, viscera means what? Viscera means organ. Sensations that I receive from my organs. So what are those sensations that we receive from the organ? Whenever we are having an upset stomach, or after having so much biryanis, ice creams, and pani puris and everything, the next day I start to feel discomfort in my stomach. I start to have abdominal pain. I might have loose motions or loose stools. Okay, so all those sensations, that is that sense of discomfort in my abdomen, my abdomen feeling distended, or something that we call bloating, that abdominal pain. All the sensations that we receive from are receiving from the abdomen. So those are visceral sensations. Okay, so visceral sensations can be this abdominal pain, right? This abdominal bloating like feel or discomfort. So these are visceral sensations. Viscera means organ. Sensations that come from organ. Okay, and somatic sensations. What are somatic sensations? We have skin, then we have the subcutaneous tissue. Subcutaneous means, sub means below, cutaneous means skin. So we have skin, the tissue beneath the skin, that is a subcutaneous tissue. Then we have the muscles, then we have our bones, we have our fascias. After that, deep inside we have the organs. So in a much better way, we can say visceral sensations are sensations that are perceived from the deeper parts of the body, which may includes the organs, and somatic sensations are perceived from the superficial part of the body. And what are the superficial parts of our body? One is the skin. The second is the tissue beneath the skin, that is a subcutaneous tissue. The third is the bones and joints. The fourth one is the muscles. The fifth one is the fascias. You will learn later what these fascias mean. Okay. So these are the areas which we call the superficial part of our body. Okay. Now, do you recollect these bones and joints and these muscles? These two together can be called as one particular name. Bones and joints and muscles, what do they help us in? They help us to move. These all movements I am making currently, like whenever I am writing, I am moving my hand. All these movements are only possible because of these bones, joints, and the muscles, right? So they help me in movement, or in a better term, they help me in locomotion. I think you have earlier heard about this locomotion system, means the system that helps us to move. And what does that system involve mainly? Bones, joints, and muscles. Fine. So this is the somatic system, or the sensations we receive from these areas are called the somatic sensations. So this is the summary of what we have talked about till this time, right? We have the sensor system and the sensory peripheral nervous system. Based on the types of sensation it receives, it can be classified into the special sensations and general sensations. Special sensations are those that can be only perceived by a particular part of our body. The general sensations are something that can be perceived by different parts of our body. And one such example is the tongue. For the tongue, what is the special sense? Taste. And for the tongue, what are the general sensations? It can be pain, it can be temperature, it can be touch. For our eyes, what is the special sense? It is vision. And what are the other general sensations that can be perceived by the eyes? Touch, pain, temperature, right? And vibration, etc. Okay. Now, for the general sensations, based on from where we receive these general sensations, it can be classified into somatic and visceral. Somatic means the superficial part of our body, and that includes skin, subcutaneous tissue, bones and joints, muscles, and fascias. The bones and joints and the muscles are together called as locomotion system. And we have the sensations that coming from the deeper parts of the body, and they are referred to as visceral sensations or sensations from the organs, and that include our abdominal pain, abdominal bloating, abdominal discomfort, all those things. Okay. Now, what were the general sensations we discussed about? What are the different types of general sensations we can perceive? One is the touch. Second one is temperature. Third one is pain. Fourth one is vibration. Okay. You all are familiar with all these four terms. What does touch mean? What does temperature mean? What is pain? What is vibration? Because we have perceived it. Now, there is one more general sensation that we should be aware of, that is proprioception. And what the hell is proprioception? About which you will be learning in the next video. So, I hope the session was interesting, everything was clear. Just make sure that you let me know about your doubts and queries, to which I'll be responding. Till then, stay hungry and stay crunchy. Cheers.